On a dark and starry night when the moonlight barely illuminates the surroundings, a dramatic scene unfolds in one of the houses in Chon Manor in Shinye County, which is directly related to the fate of an infant. An experienced doctor with long silver hair and pointed ears that show the weight of years carefully examines the newborn, his gaze focused and full of anxiety as he gently takes the tiny hand of the baby in his hands as if trying to find the answer to his questions. The head of the Jeong family, Jeong, sits in front of the doctor, deeply worried, his face serious, silent, but his eyes tense, waiting with bated breath for the doctor's verdict on his son's health. After a few minutes of heavy silence, the doctor, taking a deep breath, says with a sad look in his eyes that it will be extremely difficult for the child to live to the age of 20. His body is too weak, and he may not be able to cope with the trials that await him in life. These words fall upon the head of the family like a heavy burden, which he can hardly bear, as if talking to himself. He asks in despair whether this is a heavenly punishment for the fact that this child took his mother's life at birth, and why fate is so cruel to him. The doctor shakes his head in bewilderment, amazed that a father can say such cruel words about his own child. He sternly replies, "Can you accept his fate so easily? You are a father. You should fight for your son's life, not curse him." However, the doctor continues his sad speech. He explains that the infant has an extremely rare and dangerous condition known as 9 severed yin meridians. This condition makes him extremely vulnerable and weak, preventing the body from fully functioning. The doctor also adds that the baihui point on the baby's head is open too much. This phenomenon is popularly called ascension to deity, and it means that the baby may leave this world very soon if nothing is done. Jeong, trying to keep his outer calm, tries to realize the seriousness of what he has heard, but inside he is shaken to the core, because this is not just a disease, but a threat to the life of his son, who's talking nicely. While the adults discuss his fate, the baby lies quietly in the basket, unaware of the heavy words being spoken around him, his little face glowing with serenity as the night continues to shroud the Chon estate in thick shadows and mystery. The doctor and Jeong continue to discuss ascension to deity, which the father believes is a sign of the power of the Taoist masters. The doctor, on the other hand, expresses doubt about such reasoning, hinting at the superstitious nature of such views. The senior doctor, pointing to a point on his head, explains that such martial artists use the meridians on the top of the head by Hui Point, the same area that is too open in an infant, which is the cause of its weakness. Ascent to deity, according to the doctor, is a state when a person cannot withstand the influx of the energy of nature, which leads to his death. This powerful energy destroys the body, as if the person is suffocated in it, not being able to withstand its influence. Jeong listens silently, thinking about what he has heard, his face showing tension, while the baby in the basket makes tiny noises, not realizing how serious the conversation is about his life. The head of the family, turning away from the doctor and looking up at the night sky, tries to realize the inevitability that seems to be getting closer and closer to him. He is deep in thought, not knowing what to do in such a difficult situation. "I guess I was right all along," says Jeong, concluding that everything is heaven's punishment for his wife's death. He still believes that the baby's fate is predetermined. The doctor is outraged at how a man who's supposed to be a father can be so indifferent to the life of his child, while the baby lies quietly in the basket, unaware that his life hangs in the balance. Jeong ends the conversation by telling the doctor that it's time for him to leave. He promises to pay for his services, but his face remains cold and detached, as if he's made up his mind. The doctor leaves the room with irritation, saying that he does not need to pay for this examination, but his face betrays an inner struggle. He cannot accept that the father so easily gives up his own child without taking any action to save him. The doctor, leaving the estate, ponders how this child's life would have turned out under different circumstances. He thinks that if the boy had grown up in a different environment, perhaps in Shaolin or among the demonic factions, he would have become a great warrior, but fate was cruel. The doctor, his broad-brimmed hat pulled over his eyes, leaves, thinking about the fate of the infant. He knows that he is unlikely to live a long life unless he finds inner enlightenment. The doctor leaves the estate with a heavy heart. He ponders that an infant's only chance of survival is to achieve his own enlightenment. He looks up at the starry sky, realizing that this task is incredibly difficult, especially for such a young being. As the decades pass, the peaceful atmosphere of Chon Manor returns. The sun illuminates the courtyards and roofs, creating a sense of stability and prosperity. The head of the family tells his relatives that ever since his father, a disciple of the famous master Seon Gyeomja of the Jeongnan sect, founded the clan, he has devoted his life to revitalizing the family heritage. He is proud to have inherited the unique technique of the Jeongnan sect and is convinced that if his clan becomes world famous, they will be able to consolidate their power. The head is determined not to close the clan business despite all the difficulties. The family congratulates his brother on the success of the clan. He is one of the sons of the head and has joined the Jeongnan sect, which is considered an incredible achievement for the family, and they are truly happy for him. There is an atmosphere of celebration and unity in the hall. The head raises his glass, calling everyone to drink to the success of the family and the continued prosperity of their clan. However, during the dinner party, some of the guests have a look of doubt on their faces, and one of them is silent, expressing a hidden anxiety or premonition that something is wrong. In the center of the room, there is an empty chair, symbolizing the absence of an important family member. In his absence, those present begin to feel a slight anxiety and uncertainty about the future. One of the family members notices that Youngshin, their sibling, still hasn't arrived, which makes the head of the family anxious because he had hoped that everyone would gather around the table on the big day. But it's the father's fault. The father speaks to his son, explaining that he ordered Youngshin to stay at the training ground. On this joyous day, he felt that Youngshin's presence would be inappropriate. Father sighed as he brought the cup of drink to his lips and said that it would be better not to have Youngshin present on such a festive occasion, for fear that he might bring bad omens. One of the guests is embarrassed and uncomfortable when he hears this, and a drop of sweat appears on his face, revealing his inner tension and surprise at his father's words. At this time, the training ground where Youngshin is staying is quietly empty, and the air is filled with a strange, almost mystical silence as the doors to the training ground slowly open. Youngshin is focused on his thoughts and training. His face is calm, but expresses inner strength and determination. The energy around him begins to condense. A powerful aura begins to manifest around Youngshin, which gradually takes shape. His training bears fruit, and energy begins to swirl around him, creating bright streams of light. Youngshin suddenly opens his eyes full of determination and strength. His gaze is full of understanding, and the tension in the air can be felt from the powerful energy he has curbed. With a sudden burst of power, Youngshin is lifted into the air, surrounded by radiant streams of energy, a sight that seems almost divine, his strength surpassing anything he had experienced before. Once on the ground, Youngshin easily controls his energy, which continues to swirl around him, leaving a trail of power. His training has reached a new level of mastery. Youngshin lowers his hand and smiles slightly to show that he has gained a new level of strength and confidence. His gaze is full of determination, and a new chapter of life lies ahead of him. The protagonist clenches his fists and realizes that he has completely mastered the Chon clan's movement technique. He is pleased with his achievements as his body can no longer become stronger. He reflects that the movement technique allows him to fill his muscles with energy and contract it, achieving maximum physical strength. Now he hopes that, with this improvement, his body will live longer. The hero reflects on a movement technique that helped him achieve a new level of control over his body and energy, and his thoughts are focused on how far the technique has taken him. The hero's brother is surprised and asks him if he created the martial art, to which Youngshin replies confidently, yes, he did. Youngshin explains that he didn't create this art from scratch, but merely reworked their clan's exclusive martial art to make it even more powerful and effective for everyone. The older brother looks at Youngshin carefully, reflecting on his talent and pursuit of excellence. This moment of silent recognition makes him think. The older brother puts his hand to his forehead and asks Youngshin not to take his words the wrong way. and Youngshin replies with a smile that he understands his concern. The brother tells Youngshin that it would be better if he didn't tell anyone about his recycled technique. Youngshin confusedly interjects. He asks his brother why he shouldn't tell anyone. The younger brother reacts with surprise and fear. When the older brother tells him to learn this martial art, he worries that there may be a deviation of energy and that his life may be in danger. Youngshin is stunned by this reaction. He realizes that his brother is really afraid to learn his technique, and this causes him internal doubt and anxiety. Suddenly, the head of the family appears, angrily pointing at Youngshin in luxurious attire, accusing him of insolence for interfering with the clan's sacred martial arts, perplexed as to whether he considers himself the founder of the clan. Youngshin, with a serious and somewhat confused expression on his face, stands silently looking in front of him as if weighing the accusation he has heard. He is distressed by these words. Youngshin withdraws to avoid conflicts within the family. He stares into the void in front of him, his thoughts deepening, his mind full of tangled musings. A young man sits on a wooden bench playing with his fingers thoughtfully, pondering the concept of a clan founder and a man creating martial arts for an entire group, as if realizing the depth of these concepts for the first time. Youngshin's memories are full of vivid images of people close to him. He did not aspire to greatness, but just wanted to be healthy and live in peace with the people around him, dreaming of simple human happiness. Youngshin notices that the waiting time is coming to an end, and he realizes that the important guests will be arriving soon, and everyone hurries off to meet them. The protagonist notices that the entire group is heading somewhere, and as he ponders the reason, he remembers that today is just the day when the great masters of the Jeongnan sect will visit them. A majestic scene where the masters of the Jeongnan sect, one of the 9 great sects, known as one of the strongest martial alliances in the world, holding a special place among the great martial arts schools, are preparing to meet. The place where the sword deities reside causes Youngshin to think deeply. Making him ponder his place among such great warriors, he wonders if he is there. Standing in front of his mentor, the protagonist wonders if his secrecy is due to the fact that his birth led to his mother's death. And upon hearing that it is the clan head's orders, he quietly accepts this reality. The protagonist, raising his eyebrows in surprise, says in disbelief, "Did my father really order this?" And his insides shrink at the realization of the situation. The old servant came. He lowered his head and apologized. Apologizing to Master Youngshin while Youngshin himself stood silently on the doorstep, thinking about what had happened. He was sad. Youngshin is thinking, maybe if I watch from afar, it won't attract attention. Maybe I can learn something from such skilled craftsmen. He is eager to see the skills of the welcome guests. The clan members look at the approaching guests and talk excitedly, wondering who it might be. Perhaps an elder or someone equally respected. One of the disciples, with excitement in his voice, whispers that if such high masters really visit our clan, it will be a great honor for us, an incredible event. The clan patriarch, accompanied by his disciples, majestically steps out into the courtyard, preparing to greet the arriving masters, among whom their imposing figures can already be seen. The people around are all animated, exclaiming loudly, "They are here! The martial artists from the Jeongnan sect have come to honor us with their visit." No doubt everyone is excited about this event. A mysterious figure with long blonde hair and pointed ears, radiating strength and dignity, follows the guests surrounded by his students. The mysterious guest ascends the stairs with a light step, his every step as if accompanied by a light wind, making people involuntarily freeze in anticipation. Youngshin stands in the midst of the crowd and raises his eyebrows in surprise, just like everyone else around him, before he can finish his thought in surprise. This beautiful woman of a noble race appears before those present, emitting confidence and strength, her aura shining, emphasizing her power and noble origin. Youngshin realizes that he is a member of a noble race that he has read about in books. They are known for their mystery and ability to live forever, and people perceive them as divine beings. Everyone watches as the energy from her body naturally condenses around the woman. The power in her is so great that it literally bursts outward, impressing those around her. The woman enters the hall majestically, accompanied by her companions, while those around her bow their heads respectfully, recognizing her importance and status. She looks around. The clan patriarch greets the noble guests with a smile and respect, expressing his deep gratitude for their visit to their humble clan. He is experiencing mixed emotions, which is evident on his face. The patriarch, who introduces himself as Chong Dam-young, showing his respect and recognition for the guests of the noble race, they greet each other. The female noble, bowing her head and clutching her sword, thanks for the warm welcome and introduces herself as the Jeongnan clan elder, Yo Il-shin. The fear and admiration on the face of one of those present who realizes that it is not just a guest standing before him, but an elder of a noble race, which causes him to be in awe. The people kneel down, apologizing for not recognizing the divine being before them. The elder politely asks them to rise, stating that she is not here to display her status. The patriarch, apologizing for his ignorance, hastens to correct his mistake by inviting the sword-wielding deities inside, clearly nervous at the realization of their importance. He had not expected to meet such guests. Yongshin ponders that a member of the noble race, in addition to being an elder of the Jeongnan sect, can live for a very long time. This causes him to think deeply about the age and wisdom of such beings. A group led by an elven woman, a representative of a noble race, follows the head of the clan who leads them to a building. The atmosphere in the air is tense. Everyone shows deference. The clan representatives look at the guests with great reverence. One of the clan elders even bows to a woman of a noble race, recognizing her status. The protagonist is among the observers and feels inner excitement. Elf smiles. Her gaze is directed at the protagonist. He in turn cannot take his eyes off her, feeling that before him is not just an elder, but a powerful being. The protagonist bows as a sign of respect before the noble race. His movements are clear and full of dignity, showing his recognition of its greatness. The clan head and guests are having an important conversation. The elf suddenly notices the third son of the clan head in the stranger and expresses obvious surprise at the sight of him. The clan head proudly declares that this child is his third son. The whole group around seems impressed, and the protagonist in question continues his humble behavior. The elfess notices that the third son has very clear and perceptive eyes, giving the impression that he is very intelligent. Her remark causes the clan head to admire his son even more. However, the head of the clan suddenly apologizes to the elven woman for his son's behavior, admitting that the third son is often not on his best behavior and brings a lot of trouble to the family. The protagonist in question walks away with his head down, feeling the weight of his father's words. His steps are heavy, and he clearly feels the stares of others. When he saw the powerful energies emanating from the martial artists of the Jeongnan sect, his perception of martial arts changed dramatically. He felt that his understanding of the capabilities of the human body and energy had reached a whole new level. After years of hard training, having reached the pinnacle of mastery in the art of clan movement, he found himself at a crossroads, not knowing what else he could do to improve his skills. He began to ponder in which direction he should continue training to go beyond his limits. As he gently picked up the sword and ran his fingers over its cold blade, the glint from the blade seemed to penetrate his gaze. In that moment, he realized that the sword would be his new tool for improvement, and this decision only strengthened his determination to become even stronger. As he watched the sunset and felt the coolness of the evening air, he realized that training in the sword arts was the next logical step. Training with a sword could open up new horizons for him. The two companions of the elven woman were talking, and looking around, they were pleasantly surprised at how comfortable this place was. They did not even expect it to be so cozy and safe. And one of them, amazed by what they saw, quietly said that this place was much better than he thought. One of the warriors, looking out at the majestic sunset over the mountains, noted that with such a concentration of earth energy, this place could be an ideal target for the tribe to capture. He knew that such strong energy flows would attract their attention and could cause a conflict soon. She sat at the table and thought about the situation. If the tribe really decided to take over the place, the only way to defend it was to organize a counterattack. But the thought that it could lead to many casualties among the clan members made her doubt the correctness of such a plan. One of the warriors, who did not hide his aggressive nature, with a martial gleam in his eyes, proposed a simple plan to attack the enemies before they could approach the walls. He was sure with a smile on his face that their superiority would give them the opportunity to destroy the enemy in the shortest possible time. She brought the cup of tea to her lips, her mind preoccupied with the fact that if everything worked out the way they had planned, it would be a real victory. But behind those plans lurked uncertainty and possible consequences. The images of the warriors of the tyrannical sword tribe appeared in front of her mental gaze. These harsh fighters, each of whom was a terrifying power in themselves, represented the greatest danger. She knew that these people who were willing to do anything to win were the most troublesome and dangerous part. The elven woman, as a senior mentor, warns her students not to slack off and to always keep their sword aura at the ready, to which they dutifully respond in agreement, realizing the importance of discipline in the battles to come. Immersed in his thoughts, the elder continues to drink tea, completely absorbed in his thoughts and strategies, pondering his next move. Despite everything going on around her, she can't get the strange young man she recently met, who turns out to be the patriarch's third son, out of her mind, feeling that he somehow stands out from the rest. What a strange child. With these thoughts, the elder observes the situation around, not letting go of the thought that the young man is different from the others, and she thinks so for a reason. At this time, in the silence of the night, the young warrior Jeong falls into deep meditation, his mind and body engulfed in concentrated energy that a mysterious light begins to shine around him. Suddenly, he feels a strange change in his body. His chakras begin to open at an incredible speed, and he realizes that his body is receiving huge flows of energy. Warrior Jeong notices that his main energy point, Beihui, has suddenly opened wider than ever before, which surprises him because he hasn't meditated in a long time, focusing entirely on martial arts. He feels the energy fill his body through his head, becoming more powerful than ever before. It fills him with both fear and wonder. If this continues, he thinks anxiously, I will have less than 5 years left before I lose consciousness. And the thought of such a short life makes him panic. Shocked by this realization, the young warrior realizes that he has less than 5 years to live if he cannot control this process, because as a baby, the doctor gave this prognosis, and it is not avoidable. The protagonist, gripped by an unexpected and overwhelming sense of fear, is inwardly shocked that even his many skills and years of training do not help him deal with this overwhelming feeling, as if he is facing something far more powerful than he could have imagined. In the complete silence of the night, when the whole world seems frozen, the old building suddenly emits a long creaking sound, and its footsteps, sounding so loud and rumbling on the stone steps, seem to emphasize the oppressive atmosphere and the growing anxiety that engulfs it. Stopping on the threshold, the hero silently looks into the endless darkness of the night sky, illuminated only by the faint light of the moon, as if trying to find in this obscurity the answers to the questions that disturb him. But instead, he feels only a growing premonition of something terrible and inevitable. Although he has fully mastered the Chon clan's art of movement and perfected his skills, the hero realizes with horror that it still does not give him the ability to control or stop what is happening, which fills his soul with an agonizing sense of helplessness and despair. Raising his head to the sky, the hero sighs deeply, trying to pull himself together and find at least a drop of calm, but his eyes reflect only growing anxiety and fear of what is yet to be learned, which makes him constantly look around. Suddenly, the space around him seems to slow down, and the hero, sensing something wrong, stops abruptly. He looks carefully ahead, feeling that something dark and dangerous is coming, and, despite the anxiety, continues to remain alert. A strange and ominous energy suddenly begins to emanate from the darkness of the night. As if an approaching threat is raising its head, the hero feels this energy enveloping him, and his premonitions become more and more threatening, increasing his wariness and inner tension. He rushes forward with incredible speed through the darkness of the night, his footsteps echoing in the silent stillness, as if running through the narrow streets becomes a struggle with himself, with his fears, and his determination to keep going is the only thing that keeps him afloat. The closer he gets to the source of the strange energy, the stronger the smell of blood becomes, filling the air with a thick, unsettling aroma that evokes his primal instinct for danger. Yongshin feels his inner tension rising, and each new step brings him closer to the unknown, terrifying discovery. And then, all the silence around him suddenly becomes even more threatening, and a vision unfolds before his eyes. A flickering red light emanating from the gate illuminates the night darkness, as if warning of impending disaster, and the hero realizes that the danger is closer. When he found himself in the center of the trap, instantly realized that it was a magic formation designed to attack, his reaction was lightning fast, but the sense of danger did not leave him. Quick and decisive steps were the only way to avoid disaster. He felt every tiny shift of the ground under his feet, but he did not allow himself to stop. His eyes reflected pure shock, as he didn't expect to fall into a trap that was much more serious than he had imagined. And the day had started out so well. He froze, looking at the bloody picture that appeared before him. Bodies were lying everywhere. Life had left them in a cruel and merciless attack. His eyes were filled with horror and fear. He did not understand what had happened. Every corner of the room was stained with blood, and the faces of the people expressed unspeakable horror. This massacre took him by surprise. He had never seen anything like it before. It was gruesome. He knew he had to pull himself together. In bewilderment, he whispered, "Didn't I notice that such a thing was happening right under my nose, within the walls of the Chon clan manor? How could this even be possible?" He looked around tensely, trying to figure out if it was related to the magic formation that had activated so suddenly. Everything was drenched in blood, adding to the horror. On the ground was the body of a young girl whose eyes were frozen with fear and pain. And he couldn't take his eyes off this silent witness of cruelty. But she hadn't done anything, Yongshin thought. He put his hand to his sword, feeling compelled to find out who was behind this brutal attack on the Chon clan. The force that did this was obviously huge. He ran his fingers over the dead girl's cheek. From the shadows appeared a massive man whose voice was full of contempt. "How naive you are," he said with a sneer, looking down at him surrounded by red-haired fighters. A gruff and intimidating warrior with a dead stare looks directly at the hero and says, "If you manage to survive, it would be much smarter to stay in the shelter instead of climbing out." His words are filled with threat and contempt, as if he has already sentenced the hero to imminent death. A fearsome warrior with fiery red hair, holding a huge sword, with a mocking sneer says, "It seems that he is not destined to live long. Send him to the other world." These words sound like an order, without a shadow of doubt, as if the death of his opponent is only a matter of time. The protagonist, frowning and remaining unperturbed, stares at his opponents with his lips pressed together, an icy determination in his eyes, a silent resistance to the situation in which he finds himself, as if he is considering every step before he acts. A huge warrior with two swords behind his back, coldly watching the hero, declares that he will kill him only because that was the order. "Do not blame me for this." His words are full of cold indifference. He is like a mechanical executor of the will of another, who feels neither pity nor hatred for his enemy. The hero's hand slowly reaches for the enemy, his every gesture full of concentration and strength. In this moment, you can feel the tension before the inevitable clash, where every detail can be decisive in the battle that is about to begin. The fierce battle unfolds instantly. The warrior's huge fist moves swiftly towards the hero, intending to crush him with a single blow, but the hero manages to dodge, showing his speed and skill, preparing to retaliate, which could decide the outcome of the battle. At a critical moment, the hero demonstrates his skill and strength by intercepting his opponent's arm in mid-air. This unexpected turn of events confuses everyone. No one expected him to be so dexterous and decisive in battle. The warrior's face, previously confident in his invincibility, is suddenly contorted with pain and fear. His eyes widen in panic as he realizes he has fallen into a trap. He clearly did not expect such a rebuff, and is now forced to face the harsh reality of his defeat. A moment later, the hero clutches his opponent's arm with incredible strength, causing him to scream out in agony. His power is evident in every movement, even the strongest fall before his skills. and the bloody battle reaches its climax. The climax of the battle is accompanied by a piercing cry of pain. When the enemy, realizing his hopelessness, cannot hide rage and despair, the protagonist does not hesitate to bring the fight to an end, demonstrating that his will and strength surpasses even the most ferocious enemies. The battlefield is strewn with bodies, blood everywhere, and the few survivors stare at the defeated enemies in bewilderment, while in the midst of all this chaos stands the protagonist, keeping on his feet after a fierce battle. One of the opponents, despite his wounds, is trying to stand up, making agonizing sounds, his comrades beside him, looking at him, tensely watching the development of events and afraid to say a word. The protagonist is calm and imperturbable, his aura filling the surrounding space with cold light, creating the illusion of a mystical force, ready for the next blow. The enemies are clearly puzzled and full of fear. One of them draws his sword, the red-haired one who gave the order, at the same time asking who you are, the incomprehension and fear clearly readable in their eyes. The answer is simple and without unnecessary words. The third son of this clan, in the hero's gaze, is full of determination. His hands tightly clutch the hilt of the sword, and in his eyes blazing fire, ready to consume those who stood in his way.